sister, sit and store what I'm about to preach on. Damn, sister, close the door. Watch what you step out on. I said, hey, sister, so before you become a sin, I said, hey, sister, there is more, even if you think there isn't. When you live your life day to day, there will always be obstacles in your way. But don't let that get you down, girl.
And we are back, sisters. Hey, sister, for day 18 of 30 days of HERstory with yet another amazing, phenomenal woman, Miss Jennifer. How are you doing?
I am awesome. Thanks for asking. How are you doing, Nadia?
I am doing pretty well.
Good.
This has been, it's been really cool. And I'm getting to meet new friends, right? It was like, a friend of Karen is a friend of mine. Duh.
I love that.
And it was so funny because we were talking the other day and I was like, you remind me so much of my friend Marcia. And she was like, you know Marcia? And then apparently like they were good friends for a million years and I never knew that. So
amazing.
Yeah. Small world. But a nice small world. How does it feel to like be a part of a world of amazing women who are encouraging and uplifting and connecting? How does that feel?
Really good. It's important to have that tribe, right? I just think that these things are really crucial for our growth. And I think even more empowering would be if I could actually just meet them in a big room. And I think you have an event coming up soon, and just color, right? and just be able to kind of elbow bump or do what we do. But I think when women come together, it can be so impactful. So
Yes. I mean, and when all the crazy is done, we really hope to be able to actually come together physically and hang out. Of course, our women are literally all across the world. So, we might, this virtual life thing, it has some perks. So I think we might keep, a little bit of both worlds.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yes. So Jennifer, I am really eager to hear what you're going to share with us today. And so tell all of us quite a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you help?
Okay, so a very broad question. I'm going to kind of trade it down a little bit as much as I can. And I think I'll just really talk about the parent company instead of going into all of the many subsidiaries that we have. But basically, I am the super proud, and I need to underscore that I am such a super proud owner of a company by the name of Trinova Wellness Center. And really and truly, Trinova Wellness Center is an organization, it's a boutique wellness firm, and we employ something called the trifecta model, which is looking at biological, psychosocial, and spiritual elements for sustaining diseases and promoting diseases and the causes of diseases. And then therefore, we also look at that holistically on how we help individuals reverse lifestyle diseases. So we do things ranging from things like fibromyalgia to chronic hip pain to things like gut dysbiosis. And then the psychological part of it comes in with cognitive distortions, looking at how your mindset really plays an important role in your lifestyle and in how you rise up from different adversaries, such as diseases. And then the spiritual component as well, because we are first spirit and then flesh. So everything happens in the spiritual realm before it happens in the physical realm. So really employing that trifecta approach and helping my patients and my clients move from what our tagline is from functioning to flourishing. So so that's kind of what we do.
From functioning to flourishing. That reminds me of what we were talking about yesterday with Maria. when we were talking about victory, and she was saying the image she has of victory is like when a flower is in full bloom and it gives off this beautiful aroma, this beautiful essence. And so you're talking about not just, us planted here to fulfill a specific purpose and just function, like our bodies are just moving, but to actually, enjoy the life, and the liveliness that comes with that. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think people feel that health is the absence of a diagnosis, or health is the absence of pain. And we really need to change that, especially in certain pockets, in certain geographical pockets. We need to change that. We need to change that among people of color. But it needs to be a narrative that needs to be changed, that health has different pillars. And of course, we have emotional health, physical health, relational health, spiritual health. We have different pillars of health, but we can't look at health from this idea that we don't have symptomology. And one of the things I often say is, tell me what cancer feels like before you actually get that diagnosis. Tell me what high cholesterol feels like before you get that diagnosis. It's symptom free.
I will tell you, I felt great before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was like, what are you talking about? I feel amazing. I was like, I kept getting, you're otherwise very healthy. I was like, thanks. I don't really know how to take that. They're like, yeah, no, you have no other major health challenges. You exercise, you eat well, you do all these things. I'm like, yeah, and still I'm here sitting down in front of you having this conversation. So
how did that
happen? And honestly, it was the treatment for the disease that felt terrible.
Yeah.
The disease itself. And that really made me think about a lot of things in life. The comfort that we get from not knowing that something is eating away at our success, at our health, at who we're meant to be. It's comfortable because we just don't know it's happening. And the process of ridding ourselves from that is painful, hard work.
It is.
And it's really easier to just not do that. Right? Yeah. The devil we know, right? It's really much easier to just be like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna really focus on myself and ask myself the hard questions. I'm not gonna go deeper into this trauma. I don't want to ask, of my family, of anyone in my past. I don't want to forgive. I don't want to let go. I don't want to do any of these things because this doesn't actually hurt me right now in terms of what we feel, but it's actually doing so much hidden damage in there. And so that to me was like a really big life lesson of, the silent things that are subtracting from us and how much work it takes to actively pour into ourselves that health and healing, What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're speaking, the first thing that comes to mind, or one of the things that come to mind, is unforgiveness. And now it is actually has found itself in the medical dictionary, and really being able to say that it is one of the primary causes for diseases. And this toxicity, this emotional toxicity that we can store in our body, actually has lasting and cascading effects throughout. Even as people of color, women, in particular, we have this high conditioned, and perhaps even there's a bias out there that we have this high pain threshold that we can continue to do it and do it and do it. And so we often mask depression and anxiety underneath this strength, this model of strength that we can't be vulnerable. And so what ends up happening physiologically is that cortisol, high levels of cortisol, again, has lasting effects on our body. And so when we sit down in front of the oncologist or the treating physician, and they tell us that we do have a particular disease or a diagnosis, we often are stunned by that. So your story resonates with me because I hear it all the time. Me, I am otherwise healthy. But it's these silences, right? These stressors, and we normalize it. So we have the kid in one hand, we have groceries in the other hand, we have our textbooks on our forehead, on our heads, and we're just, in keys and trying to get in to the car. And ultimately we are become so normal with that we don't understand that the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems are at play. And when we don't pay attention to them, they do have impact, whether we believe it or we don't, whether we know it or we don't. And one day it may show up as a diagnosis. So my job is really to really raise awareness and education with our people. When I say our people, I'm talking about whoever's in my corner of the world that I occupy, and to really let them know that we have to have a different positioning and a different understanding of what health is. And
Yes.
so I'm on this mission, this quest, if you will, to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Now, I am going to bring this question back because we've heard about your business and how you are amazing at helping your clients and patients. But I want to know more about Jennifer. So,
I think it's Pastor Judith. I heard that they've encouraged her to have this brag bank.
yes.
Pastor Judith, if you're online, I'm with you, girl. I need a brag bank as well. I do a lot. I do a lot for my community. I have a family that I am involved in making sure that they are whole. I am an entrepreneur of many different businesses, and I am currently getting my doctorate. So I have many, in a very different industry. So my doctorate is in industrial psychology. So my clinical master's was in clinical works, where I can do really impactful work on talk therapy. But now I'm going to actually be branching off and doing consultation and really looking at leadership and purpose, and how do we find meaning and strength in the occupations that we occupy? How do I help female entrepreneurs?
Yes.
So that's what I do. And I am just a really laid back girl when I'm not working, which is rare. I am in my bed. I am in my bed. I'm not a Netflix girl. I mean, I am really boring. I'm reading my Bible. I'm boring. I love learning, but I'm uneventful. I don't have stuff to
Aw.
say. Yeah, I'm not, and I've had that slant, so I don't feel like I miss out. So COVID-19 has really given me permission to do what I love to do. So I don't have to network a lot, and nor do I like it. As an entrepreneur, we have to choose the things that we engage in. And so
Yeah.
oftentimes I'm behind the scenes trying to make and scale up my business. But it's
Yeah.
where my passion lies. People sometimes say, Jen, don't you have a life? I said, this is my life. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I could do it all day long. That question of balance,
Mhm.
it doesn't exist in my world. Priorities exist in my world. I don't believe in
Mhm.
balance. I believe in
Yes.
prioritizing and reprioritizing. So today I am a priority, and that
Yes.
means I would go to the spa or
Mhm.
spend some intentional time on me. Other days I'm just not a priority. My daughter may be a priority that day. So I believe in reprioritizing. I don't believe the word balance exists.
Yes.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of challenging the idea on balance. I had heard once before, when things are balanced, they don't move.
Mm,
And life is about movement, life is about rhythm, life is more about harmony than balance. Because, like you said, when you have to prioritize one day and then the next day, you have to just, reformat that flow. And so
mhm.
one day alto is higher and the next day soprano is higher and
Right,
next day it's
right.
all bass, and but then they all interact with one another.
Mhm.
So it's not even that you just get to, like, life doesn't just allow you to do the one thing. You're prioritizing it in your mind, but that list is still there.
Yeah, yeah, it is, absolutely.
Yes, and so we strike that harmony, in all of that. And I don't think you're boring,
Okay. Thank you.
because for a lot of us, doing that is actually hard work. Like, it's really hard for me to just lay down. and this has been a big part of my journey. I realized, like, I talk about this very openly. I said, well, if I really needed to rest during chemo and resting was going to make me better, what doesn't it, naturally compute that rest is a part of keeping me healthy,
Absolutely. Like me,
Yeah.
I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm up at 4 a.m. So, but I'm in bed shamefully so at like 8, 9 o'clock. Like I'm in bed early. But my day starts really early in the morning.
Mhm.
And sleep, your body does heal during these periods of
Yes.
sleep.
Yeah.
And that rest and digest component is where you really are getting that healing. So to your point, they're asking you to heal when you're in disease states,
Right.
but to be preventative in our pursuit of health,
Yes.
then rest and sleeping. And I can tell you, like one of our triads that we use when we're helping individuals who is pre-diabetic or any kind of symptomology that is just poking its ugly head and
Mhm.
hasn't quite realized itself yet is sleep and poop, right? Like you got to
Yeah.
poop, right? You got to poop, that word, right? I think Dr.
Yes.
Oz kind of raised it to the awareness of people, but you got to poop right, you got to sleep right, and you got to get your blood sugar right. So these three
Yeah.
things are essential irrespective of biological components of diseases,
Mhm.
psychosocial components, whatever it is that we're dealing with. You got to sleep right, you got to poop right, and you got to have your blood sugar right. So that's
Yes.
got to be balanced.
Yes, absolutely. And I really like the fact that you're able to pull together, these triparts,
Mm.
and help us to understand again this holistic approach, right? It's not just about having our lives in silos,
Mhm.
and COVID gave us a chance to pause.
Yeah.
COVID gave us that moment for those of us who are not directly affected. And there are other times in our lives where we might have the opportunity to pause. It's funny because we were talking in this morning's affirmation about being unstoppable
Mhm.
and how the pause is not a stop and
Right.
why we need to give ourselves permission to pause
Yeah.
because the obstacle that brought the pause is not able to stop us, you
Mhm.
know? And sometimes we're so afraid of the pause because we think if we lose momentum, we're going to stop,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily what's happening. And so we don't elevate this need to pause.
Right.
You talk about waking up early and staying there. That's been one of my biggest challenges. I would normally I would inhale like to wake up. I would inhale, sit up, and put my feet on the floor in one motion. I'm so serious. I just be like fully up. I'm just ready. And
Oh.
I realized that I would problem solve in my sleep,
Okay.
which
Okay.
meant I was not actually sleeping.
Right. You weren't in REM.
No. And
Yeah.
I thought this was great. I thought this was amazing. I would
Mhm.
wake up and be like, Eureka, and then run and go do something that was a challenge before. And so now one of my big things is when I wake up is to not get up. It's just stay there, so yeah, I don't think your life is boring. Actually,
Okay.
your life is like, it's like I'm trying to get there.
Minerals and vitamins. Eat right, and lots of prayer. That's the antidote.
Oh my gosh. Now you are this proud owner of this amazing business and multiple businesses and PhD and family and all of these hats you're wearing. I'm not going to ask you how you do it all because
I just told you, Nadia.
yeah.
Vitamins, minerals, prayer.
I will assume that at somewhere along the line you had an idea that deepened and became more than an idea. Do you think vision is important? And if you do, in your opinion, what would be the importance of vision?
Yeah, I think vision has different layers and is important depending on the space that you occupy.
Yeah.
So as there's kind of like your micro visions, like, and they're not micro in the sense that they're not grandiose for you, but they're micro in the sense that perhaps they're not reaching a generation and
Right.
they're not reaching a community. So I think, like things for like your health, like your family, these are kind of more micro visions. um, as a leader and as an entrepreneur who wants to, which now I'm moving into, how do I accelerate women? So we're creating this program on how do we give women money, capital, content, and network, so that, and it's not in Canada, it's actually out in Africa. But when you asked me this question, I kind of thought about the word vision and how my initial vision for Trinova has just grown and become multiple visions. So to go back to your question, is it necessary? I think as a leader, I will say that it is absolutely, besides your strong why, in terms of why you want to get into this, vision is probably really the close second, in terms of that, because it gives you a really clear picture. And I tell people who will listen to me that the people that serve my vision, they're not serving it based on my 2% profit margin that I want to increase. They're not serving it based on the business plan. The banks like the business plan, right?
Yeah.
But the people that come alongside me and work tirelessly, even after their shift is done, that they're working on Saturday and Sunday, and they're really trying to push my vision forward, is because they know my vision. They know the clarity of where it is that I want to go. And that is so critical because it helps to really rally and put together your team so that you can serve the current generation and also leave fingerprints down for the next generation to come. So, to answer your question, it is critical if you are in a leadership position, whether that's pastor, corporate organization, entrepreneur space, whatever that is, because that's ultimately what people buy into. They don't buy
Yes.
into the money, the compensation, they buy into your vision.
Yes. And as I tell people all the time, your clients buy you and then they pay for your service or your products,
Mhm.
And I love the idea of your vision growing and expanding and becoming multiple subvisions over time. And the responsibility of the leader to clearly communicate the vision so that others can whose visions naturally align with that,
Mhm.
because to me that's really important too, that there's that you feel as though you're going forward on
Mhm.
your vision when we're working together on a shared vision,
Right.
and so the visions align. And so now, because as a leader we've been clear in communicating that, it gives other people the space to make a decision. Okay, this aligns with me. I'm going to go all in here.
Mhm.
I get to pour in here because I understand what Jennifer is doing. I understand what Nadia is doing. I understand where this is going and who it's helping. And I want to be, a part of driving that. That is so absolutely true. I'm in working with leaders, especially female leaders, sometimes you get that, well, why don't they just get it? Have you ever dealt with that? Women leaders who just want to know why their team doesn't just get it?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have to look introspectively to see why they don't get it.
Yeah.
And and sometimes they don't get it because perhaps because vision comes also with a strategy. So it's not like everything works together, right? So,
Yeah.
you have to have your strong why because that's kind of like your anchor. And then you need to be able to see where you're going. So your anchor is there. You need to see where you're going, which is a clear picture of
Yeah.
what success looks like, where how we are defining success as an organization, and this is where we're going. And then on top of that, you need to have your goals and your strategy on how to get there. So I think sometimes when either one of these are misaligned or broken or not even available, your people don't get it. Whether it's your
Right.
clients, your patients, whatever it is,
Yeah.
they sometimes won't get it because there's something that's not there that should be.
Yes. Yes. And so we have a lot. I hope you guys are taking notes,
Mm.
because we're looking at the, again, going back to harmony, our vision changing in different points in our lives. Jennifer mentioned micro and macro vision, so is this specific to where we are and who we are right now? Is this going to reach and impact a wider community and generations to come? And are we allowing that vision to grow? Are we allowing ourselves to grow with the vision? And are we taking responsibility for, its implementation with clearly outlined strategy, understanding the goals and the layers and the steps and what gets you from point A to point B, and then equipping those who are around you, to be able to make the decisions that help them come alongside you and push those goals. Point. Take note.
I will add, Nadia, that sometimes the challenge is that we don't have a lot of mentors or sponsors to help us to understand and how to tweak that vision, because your vision also needs to be agile. Your vision also needs to be resilient. So sometimes the vision itself, even though it's about where you are, and if you can permit me to use a biblical reference, good, thank you, with Abraham and God are having a conversation, and I like using biblical references because it's my worldview. So most of the things that my perspective comes from that worldview, and I realize that the Bible is not a motivational book; it is the Holy Scriptures. And I'm not a theologian, so if somebody on your line is like, "That's not the exegesis of the Scripture," I'm sorry. Let me just put that out there. I'm not a theologian. I use it because I think it's very empowering, and I use it with my client group, irrespective. I use it with Muslims, atheists. I use it everywhere. So Abraham and God are having a dialogue, and God has told Abraham that he needs to separate from Lot. And this is a very popular part of a scripture. And the Lord says to him to separate from Lot. And then he says to him, from where you are. That's important, because vision starts from where you are. God says to Abram, lift up your head, because you need to be able to see further, because vision is not about what you see, but it's about where you can also imagine. And he says, from where you are, lift up, because it's perspective. What do you see you will possess? And this is important. And so to your point about vision evolving, it's because we also evolve. Technology, right now we're talking about the robotic age, artificial intelligence. Can your vision withstand where we're going? And we are sometimes, as a people, we are myopic, right? And we need to create this vision that can withstand technology, right? The vision for your company, is it resilient enough to withstand it? So I often tell my people that I am almost cannibalistic. I eat myself, right? Before somebody else can eat me. I'm in a very robust marketplace, and I don't want people to eat me. I need to figure out, how do I eat my own vision and reinvent my, right? When I eat myself, I reinvent myself to create this new vision. So these multiple companies that have come out, they have come out as an ability because I have eaten myself up. And I know it's probably a really awkward, or even some people may say a little bit morbid term, but it's because I've been able to do that and say, you know what, I don't want a company to eat me up. I don't want to become irrelevant. And so I have to invent myself continually. The person who invented the first car, right? He probably thought about it in smaller chunks, right? He probably said, listen, I don't really like this camel thing. I don't really like this thing, right? So it's uncomfortable to me. So I see a vision of us moving somewhere faster, but I don't really know what that looks like. And then he went to the drawing board to create the strategies. Anyhow, I digress a little bit, but I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, I really actually want to pull out that eating of ourselves, it's like we have to consume everything at this stage. And we need to do, again, you're speaking so much of my language, in terms of strategy and planning, but as women, connecting that to, this inner knowing, right? Connecting that to our worldviews, connecting that to bringing all of us to the table, and not just this harsh, patriarchal perspective of, meet goals, win, dominate, not just that, but the rest of who we are that plays into that. And so this idea that we need to consume everything at this stage, we need to be ravenous about this stage, soak up everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, it all has purpose at this
Absolutely.
stage. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
you talk about our vision for our businesses and our lives and whatnot, withstanding technology. Were we able to withstand the pandemic? You know, we've had a lot of shift and change and a lot of mourning in this time because a lot of us had to let some things go. But
Mhm.
was it a let go that was forced because we were crushed under the weight of it, or was it a let go that was a decision? This doesn't serve, in the next level. This doesn't help me to be nimble. This doesn't help me to be resilient. So I really want us to make sure that we hear that point that you're making about, fully consuming everything at this point so that we can use that, internalize that, metabolize that, and, flourish into the next stage. That is a huge point. Now, in all of this, I mean, you're talking about, you said your PhD was in industrial psychology?
Psychology, yes.
Yeah. Now, not that I'm going to pretend to know exactly what that means, but so give me a little bit first on, before I ask you the next question, like, what does that mean?
It's really the psychology of working within a corporation or a community or a church. So it's not the inner works of your person, you as an individual in the context of society. So clinical work is around certain dimensions of mental health and how you help an individual overcome that or cope with that or adjust with that and give them a lot of tools to put in their toolbox to be able to understand that. Even relational health, again, looking at the different pillars on an individual basis, not too much looking at, there's a bit of a difference between a psychotherapist and a social worker as well. So I don't do a lot of macro system work, looking at oppression and all of that. That's phenomenal work. Is just not where my education paved the way for me. So my work is really around the individual and how I help them to build that resilience or come to terms with whatever they're dealing with. When it comes to industrial psychology, organizational psychology is to help the organization build those same things, but in a much more of a macro system. So help leaders become better leaders,
Right.
Understand motivation, understand how do you help your followers become better followers, how do you identify leaders, how do you identify strengths, how do you help individuals become better performers. So that's what my doctorate is in. And then just really coming alongside leaders now and community organizations, coming along churches. When we talk about being able to eat ourselves or this cannibalistic mentality, right? I think churches were one of the ones that were really affected by pandemic because they can't think outside of kind of like this where they are.
Yeah.
And their vision is sometimes stunted and truncated because it doesn't have the resilience of technology embedded in it. But we need to be able to move with the times. There are times and seasons, and the Bible talks about that. So that's a long-winded way, but basically that's what the industrial psychology is. So it's not clinical work, it's working with leaders and companies and organizations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So, with all of this, with you growing with your vision, consuming at each level and reinventing yourself, leading multiple groups and connecting with leaders and all of what you're doing, I don't imagine that one day you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to do all of this, and then you just went and you did it and everything was easy and everybody listened to everything that you said and nobody ever objected. And it was just, piece of cake, walk in the park. I'm not going to assume that. So in your journey, has there ever been a time where you felt as though your voice was diminished or silenced?
Yeah, Nadia, I'm not going to age myself, but I grew up in an era where it was put your head down and do great work and don't complain. And so when you wanted to challenge the status quo, the culture, the larger systems around you said no. So systemically, there was silence. On an individual basis, collectively, there is silence. So yes, I grew up with that. But my perspective around silence is probably different than a lot of other people's perspective. My perspective is, number one, that there are times that we can be okay with silence because we need to do the work that we need to do and get to the place where we can amplify our voice. So I never took silence as no. I took silence as wait until I'm able to do that. So that's my perspective. The second thing is that I believe that silence, even though they may have muzzled my voice to speak, they can't muzzle my actions. And so there's always this law of averages, and that's just my disposition. There's the law of averages, and there most people find themselves in this average. And then there are some people that fall below the average, and there's about 3% that fall above. Yeah. Yeah. So my thing is like, how do I get to that 3%? And my 3% has got to be when I look at people that excel in their art. If you look at Usain Bolt or anybody that excels in their art, the question that we ask ourselves is, were they biologically dispositioned for that? Did they have greater access than anybody else? Did they work harder than anybody else? So what I have to do is I don't need to be great. I just need to be 1% better than the law of averages. So if I can be 1% better than anybody else, then my voice can shine. My performance currency is able to shine. So we have currency in the marketplace. We have currency within the space that we occupy. And we have to use that currency to be able to amplify where we are. So sometimes we don't have a mic or a platform, but our performance should absolutely shine. Permit me again to use a biblical reference. Jesus is speaking, and the question comes and Jesus says, "Herein is my Father glorified." Jesus is talking. This is not an angel. This is not a prophet. This is Jesus. This is his words in the Bible. And he says, "My Father in heaven is glorified when we produce much fruit." So it's the ability to produce, the production that we're able to have that further advances the kingdom of God. So in essence, to answer your question, the silencing of a voice, perhaps you can look at it as muzzling your mouth. But communication is also through the language of what you do. And so I would encourage anybody, yes, my voice has been silenced. I am a woman. I have intersectionality of race, gender, all the rest of that stuff. It has been silenced. But my perspective is they can never silence me. If they say no now, then I say, just wait. I will go through the door. If you don't let me through the door, I'll go through a window. If you can't let me through the window, I'll break the damn door, the damn house down. But somehow you will hear what I have to say. And more so than hearing what I have to say, my performance currency will show you what I'm about. Performance currency is important.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Jennifer. I'm going to go backwards. I always believed in, my work speaking for itself. You should know of the work long before you meet me. You should already have made your decision long before you meet me. And I learned that actually when I was in university, and I realized that I was being awarded for stuff. I didn't know that the school even had these awards. And what I came to understand was, everybody was like, oh, you need to network. And you talked about that earlier, right? As an entrepreneur, not wanting to network. Oh, you need to network and meet people. And it's about who you know and all of this stuff. And then people would ask me, how did you get that award? How did you get that award? It's like, I don't know. I don't know these people, And then I started to realize, but they had heard of the work. And they had become familiar with the work. And they were watching. While I was busy working. And so while I was a young Black female immigrant, all of those intersections would have been there structured to work against me. Working in a Catholic university, not as a Catholic, all of those things could have silenced me at that point. But I kept the work. I kept the commitment to the work. And that is what they saw. And so I so agree with that work currency. In terms of the silencing of the voice, not actually silencing us. We talk about how we still have voice, even if we physically cannot speak. We still have voice because we have presence, we have opinions, we have understanding, we have levels of commitment that we want to bring here. And so whether or not we are given place to our physical voice, we can still speak.
Yes.
And then we also talked just yesterday, I'm loving this trajectory, just yesterday, about choosing silence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about whether or not I'm talking, it's about, should I be talking right now?
Absolutely. Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
Do I need to talk right now? And it's
Right.
about, am I choosing whether or not I'm using my voice, or is it being chosen for me as the more important piece to the question than, silencing versus voice versus amplification.
Right.
And I will throw a biblical reference at you. When I was
I love it.
when I was growing up in church, we had this challenge to learn Luke 52, which is the Christmas story, and it's a long, not Luke 2, sorry, it's like a long chapter. And so this thing kept coming back to me, and Mary pondered these things in her heart.
Mm-hmm.
This promise had been made to her, and she's watching the fulfillment of this promise over time. Her son does this amazing thing, and she ponders it in her heart. And
Right.
that really stood out to me, the power in that moment. No need to go convince all of Nazareth that her vision was real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once her husband was on board, there was no need for her to walk around and tell everybody else, listen, I told you, then you see him turn that water into wine. I told you so. No. And she pondered these things in her heart. And that to me was so powerful. That was her recognizing where and when she wanted to use her voice. Then the wedding comes and she goes, okay, son, I know you know how to do this. I know you can help these people at this wedding out, right? And then she uses her voice there. And so that was something that really stood out to me. And even in this conversation on voice, it's coming back to really the crux of it is choice and empowerment to decide.
Right.
And that's really the pinnacle here. So we're even watching as we have this conversation, and our voices have been silenced by the structures, by the systems, by the circumstances. We also reflect and say, but I allowed the silencing there.
Mm-hmm.
There was still a decision that I made at that point that gave permission. Yes. And so it's about that introspection that you talked about earlier, Now, I don't know how you seem to be similar to me in that you like learning and you like studying and you like figuring out things and stuff like that. And so I don't know, do you like writing? Do you like talking? Do you like, formulating? How was like an output for you?
Prayer. Prayer is my output. I don't really engage very well with writing. And I think it's probably because I have really messy writing, but I don't even like using technology for that. I don't do that. And I have busy brain, right? So I think for somebody to write, they have to kind of be a little bit more circumspect and kind of diligent around that. I don't know. My brain is always busy. I'm always thinking about the next thing, right? And so I don't necessarily like speaking engagements. I'm a bit of a quasi introvert. People would never believe it because when they see me, like when I'm with my patients, I'm like, hey, how are you? And I bring energy because that's what they need, right? As a leader, you got to sometimes give them what they need. But that energy that it takes for me to be out there, it's a lot. And reading is too long for me. I want to get to the point. It takes too long to get to. I want to know how the story ends. So I think for prayer is just really my outlet. Meditation is my outlet. That's probably if I haven't thought of anything, if I think of anything later, I'll let you know. But for now, that's kind of the only two things that pop up. I'm boring, Nadia. I'm telling you, I'm boring. I am.
So let's take your prayer and meditation practice. This idea that you get to, and if we're going from the meditation lens, I'm going to ask it slightly differently. That you get to create your story. This idea that you get to create the version of your story that you want told in your life. How does that make you feel?
Empowering. You see, I see it slightly different. Again, my worldview is a biblical worldview, so I see that I get to really execute the story that God has already created for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what prayer meditation does is it causes me to continually be in alignment with, okay, God, what's happening here? And
Mm-hmm.
I am total in submission of your vision for my life because I believe that you see way further than I see. And so, but to be able to execute that, because I think that's really essence what you're talking about, is it's empowering. It's empowering to be able to live that out in
Yes.
my corner. I don't need to I don't need to reach tens of thousands of people. That's not what God wants for me. I
Mm-hmm.
just need to impact my corner. And so when I think about this idea of writing down my vision or writing down my narrative or being able to change my narrative, I don't quite see it like that. I see
Mm-hmm.
that it has already been crafted for me, and I partner with my narrative. This
Mm-hmm.
idea of I partner with it, right? I partner with the plans of God for my life because I don't believe that it's all about him and not about me. I believe that I'm a very active partner in
Mm-hmm.
my life, and I make choices and actions that impact where I go, but I'm
Yes.
also not resistant to it. I'm not resistant to life. I embrace it. And
Yes.
so I don't know if I really answered your question, but I guess the one word that comes out is empowering.
Yes.
If you're looking for a word.
Yeah, no, I'm really appreciating the perspective. So don't worry about whether or not you answer the question. I'm really
Okay.
appreciating the many different perspectives that we're getting on all of these pillars that we're discussing.
Mhm.
Because we'll be talking about this for the entire year within our Her Story community, right? We're talking about
Mhm.
vision, voice, version, and victory. And so, to have these different ways of looking at it, because different women will connect with all of the
Yeah.
responses. And so this idea that we are active partners to a pre-written script, to that predestination, and that our choices either take us towards or away from, what is there created for us.
Mhm.
And that it's calling us towards this life of abundance and this life of health and this life of wealth and wellness and connection and community. It's calling us towards this. It's calling us towards the work, like you said, impacting our corner, creating that change today that would have ripple effects in generations to come. It's calling us towards this fulfillment that we all seek, right? We go up to Maslow's, hierarchy. We're all seeking this.
Yeah.
And so, taking that perspective of it's already available. It's
Yeah.
already there for you, just tap into it, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Don't kick against the pricks. Don't fight against, you know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
there. Yeah. I really can appreciate that perspective as well. Now, we believe that when we as women who are visionary women, we are leaders, we're wearing the 500 hats, we're taking off capes that don't belong to us, as was referenced before. We are, seeking this life of not just my own personal ambition, but my vision for my community, whether that community is based on geography or any other indicator. We believe that when we do these things, especially when we do it in community, that we give ourselves permission and the opportunity to live lives of victory.
Mhm.
And where victory is not a point or a moment, but victory is a characteristic of the life we choose to live. What imagery comes to your mind when you hear a term like victory?
Probably none that your previous panelists have said, but I'm going to say it anyhow. When I think about victory, I think about a mindset that supports both the arrival, the
Mhm.
process, and the outcome. So I'd never think about it as an event, similar to what you were saying. So the imagery that comes is a mindset, but a growth mindset. And
Yes.
again, it's probably nothing so fancy and cute, and like you guys had like flowers and I think about a mindset that can shift because ultimately our life situation, the outcome of that is depicted in our mind. So
Yeah.
even when went back to my early reference about God asking Abraham, "What do you see?" is what's in his mind.
Mhm.
Um, And so I think that if we, even when we talk about slavery, right, they came out of slavery, but their mindset can sometimes still be enslaved. So victory for me is all about the mindset. So I would take a big old brain and plump it in front of you, Nadia, and say, listen, I understand the brain and the mind are separate but intertwined. And that's the imagery. The ability for these 95% sections of my brain that is unused,
Yes.
or is it 90%, whatever the amount is, for it to actually be utilized, what that would look like, right? So that
Yes.
these neurons, these neurological pathways that
Yes.
have been untapped, what
Yes.
that would look like, the pathways around the amygdala, the pathways
Yes.
around the hippocampus, all of those frontal lobes, my thinking pathways, for
Yes.
them, as we look at victory, for them to actually be shining out light bright. That's what I think of when I think about victory, this ability to have this strong growth mindset to overcome
Yes.
and really embrace, accept the support, not just accept, but support the adversary,
Yes.
and then the outcome, irrespective of the outcome, because
Yes.
my mindset is always going to grow. I will never remain the same. So I never look at challenges from a point of, win lose.
Mhm.
I partner with my challenge, and I tell that to my clients a lot in therapy with anxiety. Partner
Mhm.
with your anxiety, right?
Yes.
Partner
What
with
is
it.
it teaching you in this moment?
It's
Why is it
difficult,
here? Yeah.
easier said than done, but
Yeah.
the ability, but it's that ability to learn it and practice
Mhm.
it that makes it easier said than done, right? So I can do
Yes.
that now, not with everything, but I can partner with challenges and be like, that
Yes.
relationship left, okay,
Yes.
inhale, exhale, how do I partner with it and don't resist it? What does
Yes.
it mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, I'm really grateful that we've had so many different images around this word. And one of the big things we want to present is the female perspective on a word like victory. And to be able to have like a scientific, like you just broke it down, the brain and the mind being separate but intertwined, and different perspectives, like the sweet aroma, and we've had so many different imageries painted for us in this space. And one of the things that you're calling out is this idea that I get to choose what that victory plays out to be. In these partnerships that I strike at each point in my life, I get to be victorious with the anxiety,
Mhm.
through the anxiety, and despite the anxiety. I get to be victorious throughout that entire process. And I agree with you, it's so much easier said than done, but it's so necessary to do.
Yes.
I wouldn't have had the terminologies you've given, so you've given me ways to capture it in words. But this is exactly the hard work that I would have been spending a lot of time doing, partnering with the anxiety, partnering with the fear, partnering with the uncertainty, asking, okay, why are you here in my life at this point? You're here to bring me knowledge. You're here to open a door. You're here to open my eyes, to, let the scales fall from my eyes about something within me, something in my life, in my path. So what is it? Why are you here? What is it that you're teaching me? Oh, awful person who's continuously making bad decisions and impacting my life with your poor decision making. Why are you here?
Right.
What is it that you're here to teach me? And when are you going? But
Not
it
just teach you, but what action steps? So not just teaching, because that's we're doing some cerebral work there, but
Mhm.
also the ability to action. So
Yes.
oftentimes in my clinical work, we hear of these things called negative emotions, right? Like
Mhm.
anger, and these are I said the emotions are not negative.
Yes.
They're not negative emotions. They have come to teach you something, but also drive you to action. Is it
Yes.
asking you to advocate for yourself? Is it
Yes.
asking you to be able to protect yourself? There's a voice that the emotion is raising up in you.
Yes.
And if you don't speak, it wants you to do something. The
Yes.
anxiety is driving you to do something, and you're not doing it, so you're going to be stuck in anxiety. You freeze, or you
Yes.
flee, or you fight, or whatever
Yeah.
you're doing, but you're not doing it. It's causing, if you listen
Yeah.
to what it's teaching you and then action, what it's asking you to do, that relationship needs to be ended. So it's not just teaching you that
Yes.
relationship needs to end, it's telling you go and do it.
Go
Or
do
else
it. Yes.
that emotion will continue to drive us. That's what
Yes.
emotions are doing. The emotion of love is driving us for attachment. The emotion of
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is driving us to have a conversation, but we're
Yes.
afraid to have that conversation with our loved
Yes.
one. So so anyhow, so I have a bit of a different perspective on that as well. Like there are no negative emotions.
Yeah.
We partner with our emotions and we listen to what they're teaching us, and
Mhm.
more importantly, the application, what they are
Yes.
actually driving us to do. So it's
Yes.
in the doing that we get victory. Right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And even in terms of that driving and that staying put versus moving, it made me think of driving a manual car.
Mm-hmm.
And like the car wants to gear up, and you just keep it there, and it trembles and it makes
Yeah.
noise, and it's unpleasant at that moment. And all you need to do is just shift gears,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all of a sudden now you're in flow, same direction, same movement, same gas, same car. Circumstances haven't necessarily changed, but
Mm-hmm.
you've shifted your mindset. You're in
Yeah.
a different gear, and now you're in flow. You've
Mm-hmm.
made, like you said, you've made that step. You've made sometimes it's a small change, right? Like, again, you don't need to go buy a new car. You
Yeah.
need to just make a simple change, right? And yeah, I totally agree with that. And thank you so much for that,
No
Jennifer.
problem.
And
No problem.
we're talking here and we are sharing this space, and I'm so grateful to you and to all the other women who have said yes to this. And one of the big joys that I have is to be able to do this in partnership with the Beautiful Foundation, which is this amazing organization. You are familiar with leaders there at the Beautiful Foundation. But even this idea of, coming alongside the woman who's in the driver's seat of that car that's just trembling and, being noisy and uncomfortable, and saying to her, hey, sis, it's the gear shift, it's the gas, it's the brakes, because when
Mm-hmm.
we're in that moment, the clarity of understanding that the change may be small,
Mm-hmm.
when that fear is so present, when the trauma is so tangible and real and very right now, when the only soothing that we are familiar with is one that they say it's bad for us, right? They say it's bad for us, but I know it makes me feel good, and so I would rather do the things that make me feel good and not have to deal with all of whatever else is happening in this moment. To be able to have someone come alongside and say, you can let go of the steering wheel with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
You can make that one change. That's the first change. Just let go of the steering wheel with that one hand. You can press the
Powerful.
clutch. You can make that shift between gas and clutch. You can put your hand on the gear shift. You can make that change, sis. And I'm here. I'm in the passenger seat with you, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving with you, and we're going to make it. We're going to get there, and you're going to have company, and that's what the Beautiful Foundation does. They come alongside women and children who are facing economic disenfranchisement, facing homelessness, dealing with the trauma of various levels of abuse, dealing with the overcoming of substance abuse. Come alongside these women while they're in it,
Right.
and say, hey, beautiful.
Amazing.
I see the circumstance. I see we're not driving a BMW, and I know it's like a whatever it is, it's like we used to say like an old jalopy. That's what we were saying in Barbados. Right? We get it. We get the circumstance isn't glorious and luxurious, but hey, sister, I see you. I see
Yeah.
you as beautiful. And so that's why we are so pleased to partner with them throughout this year. And as Jennifer mentioned earlier, coming up, we have a chance for you to come alongside with us in this partnership and get to know more about the Beautiful Foundation with our coloring event. In April, we'll be working with the lovely Sophia Sojay Jackson, who is the voice behind the video when you hear it play. She's an amazingly creative person who finds ways to bring her creativity to help women, especially women of color, understand the intersection between mental wellness and financial wellness, and how those are conversations that don't need to be separated. And so we're going to come together and chill out for a bit. We're going to color. All of the images in her Soulful coloring book also have affirmations. So we're going to talk about it. We talked in the last one about how I am a gift, I am comfortable, I am unique. We also came up with our own affirmations, and we talked about how different physical items in our lives make us feel and internalize, who we are and who we can be through the reflection of something external and physical. And, we were able to have really good, really deep conversation. Yeah. We were able to laugh and giggle through it, and to even like just have a moment at some point. I think we just went silent. Everybody was just coloring, just coloring. and just to be able to do that in concert, to have like me time, but not isolated time, was really, really powerful. And our friend Karen, she shared, she was like, we're grown women, why are we coloring? And then she loved it. And if I remember correctly, she colored one page twice. She went back and printed and then did it again. Yes. So please come on out and share in that moment with us. Proceeds again are going to the beautiful foundation. If you can't make it, there's straight donation tickets as well. And we encourage you to get a me gift. So we have me gifts, so you can get the full coloring book. You can get a beautiful Himalayan lavender candle. You can get multicultural pencil crayons. You can get tea and coffee to your delight. You get both, so pick whichever one you want. And we're bringing this all to you with the help of Divine Executive Concierge, who's curated all of these amazing items in your package. And we are really looking forward to that. And again, if you want to go deeper in these conversations, like what we've been having here with Jennifer and the other amazing women throughout this month, our masterminds begin in April, people. That's 5 masterminds for visionary women led by a different visionary woman. So we're bringing, again, our commitment to different perspectives and not feeling as though any one of us locks up the truth to anything, and the ability to bring it all to the table. And so we are talking about vision, voice, version, and victory throughout the year. So let's go deeper, sister. Let's go deeper. Yes. And we'll make sure you're connected with Jennifer so that you can learn more about how she can help you. Jennifer, any words of wisdom for the ladies before we hop off this afternoon?
I think one thing that I would like to say, one thing I can do, Nadia, is talk a lot. So let me see if I can narrow it down. So one thing I would like to leave the ladies with today is the idea of affirmations. Mm-hmm. Affirmations are extremely powerful, but where they become much more effective, and not just around the emotional intelligence that we have within our framework, but also around our pathways in our brain, because where real change takes place is within your neural pathways. That's when you see something different, is to really find evidence for that affirmation. Let your brain see the connection between the affirmation and evidence. And that's a journey. That's a journey of work, but that's where we can see real change. Or else we just say that I'm good enough, 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 I'm good enough. And then we never live out our good enough, because our brain is there and it's designed to protect us and to keep us safe. So if the brain doesn't see that you really are good enough, and I'm talking about even micro evidence, right? Like, look for it, be conscious, raise your awareness and raise your level of consciousness, and look for evidence and tell your brain that and repeat that more and more. But the key to affirmations, although they are powerful in you just repeating them, the repetition with evidence is really that missing link that I think a lot of us don't realize. And as a psychotherapist, I drill that unapologetically into my patients, that they've got to look for the evidence for real sustainable change to happen. That's what I would like to leave them with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I know I asked you for the last word, but I just have to piggyback on that. That's a really good a good point, and even a better illustration as to like what we do in the coloring event, you know. So you could go color and read the affirmation and repeat it, but then we go deeper into that conversation, you know, start pulling out again, where is this actually happening for you? Like, again, like we said, having that external physical contact point that says, oh, wait a minute, it is true. I am a gift because, yes. And I am comfortable because, and I am unique because. So those are like the deeper levels of conversation that we're getting into. Thank you for explaining that, Jennifer. Oh my gosh. So sisters, we will be back here tomorrow at noon Eastern time with yet another beautiful, amazing woman. And I cannot wait to jump into all of these conversations. If you are now catching us on day 18, you have some catching up to do. There's 17 other days from before. So make sure that you spend some time between now and tomorrow so that you're all caught up in time for tomorrow. Jennifer, thank you, my dear.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this as well, Nadia. I should have started off by saying that, but thank you for having me and thank you for doing this.
Wonderful, my dear. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye.
Hey, sister, sitting store. What am I about to preach on? Damn, sister, close the door. Watch what you step out on. I said, hey, sister, so before you become a sin, I said, hey, sister, there is more, even if you think there isn't. When you live your life day to day, there will always be obstacles in your way.